Lauriston, well, we're a very creative school. The kids are really, really, really good at making art. They're excellent. They love just kind of painting or drawing or sculpting. And classroom teachers are really, really good at supporting children with that. What we felt really was that children needed a kind of a critical perspective on what they were doing. So to think about questions kind of like, well, why am I doing this? What's the next step in what am I making? How does looking at someone else's work affect my work? So they really needed a kind of critical, reflective part of their kind of making. We felt that was kind of the next step in really developing art and design in the school. Dialogue, you know, if meaning is made through dialogue, we're thinking about a dialogue with art, a critical dialogue with art. How we're gonna get the kids really excited by that. You know, what are we going to put on the walls, or what are we going to do in the space that's really going to engage them with a critical dialogue. We don't want to say to the kids, okay, this is what art history says about these artists, and that's what we're going to teach you. You know, that's really not what we're interested in. What we're really interested in is a dialogue through which meaning's made. I was talking to an artist the other day, and he was talking about kind of individualism and the Americanization of children's imaginations. And I thought, okay, there's something that perhaps you might kind of tackle, you know, as a kind of as an exhibition, as a project within the school, you know, that really it's kind of relevant to them. You know, it's kind of a critical, reflective view of the world. And we've talked about it a lot about in terms of kind of the equivalent of kind of reading and writing, where there's a strong relationship between the two. And we thought, okay, well, it's the same in art. You know, you look at a picture, you've got to read it. You know, you've got to kind of comprehend what's kind of happening. And then there's a kind of link to developing their kind of writing. You know, so we thought, okay, it's the same kind of process in art, you know, reading and writing or looking and making. So it seemed a really good idea that actually we've got this bit of space that's about 4 meters by 4 meters. With a little bit of money, we could really make a really, really nice kind of gallery space. The school has had the art shed for the last kind of few years, and so the art shed really is the centre of the making in the school. And it had this kind of what it was called the thinking space. So we thought, well, okay, well, if it's a thinking space, is that really working as a thinking space? You know, is it really thinking, are the children really thinking critically, effectively about their kind of practice, their kind of making? A teacher's using it really to really kind of impact on what they were making. So we thought, okay, well, what's the next step in a thinking space within the art shed, which is kind of focused on making? So the kind of idea came to us that actually what we need really is a kind of gallery. So kids aren't kind of, you know, kids have kind of real work to kind of look at. You know, they kind of, you know, we do a lot of trips to galleries as it is, but if we've got work here as part of the making, part of that kind of work, then their criticism, their reflections, their thoughts become part of the making. So, you know, the two kind of go together. So the LSA, the Lauriston School Association, is kind of like the PTA, they agreed to kind of fund the renovations for it. We put new lights in, we kind of put new walls in, painted it. What we also realised that actually we could use the potential of this space is that it will sustain a kind of a dialogue with professional artists and designers, in the sense that we could offer exhibitions in a kind of gallery in exchange for time with the children. And this has kind of come at a really good time, because the Creative Partnership funding has disappeared. It's kind of ended, and the school's really benefited from that programme. You know, they've done a lot of really, really good projects. So, you know, in terms of thinking strategically about the school, about creativity in the school, it's how do we get people keep coming in, how do we support people coming in to work with the kids when there's no funding for that. So by creating a gallery and trying to kind of create a kind of good gallery, kind of knowing on the kind of East End kind of gallery circuit, every, you know, first Thursday of the month, openings, you know, to kind of make a real traditional space that artists want to show in. You know, we could say to them, hey, come and show here, and in exchange for that, you know, you've got to come and work for 2 days with the kids. So that's the kind of conception of the gallery, really, and that's also really the kind of direction where we think it's kind of going to go. You know, thinking about supporting a dialogue with the children and sustaining a kind of partnership, artists coming in, designers coming in to work with the kids. The first step was kind of creating the space. The next step for us has been doing this curatorial project with Alex and Paula, and that's been really fantastic, because that's really made us think about how the space is going to function. You know, there's the kind of practicalities of it, you know, hanging work, make sure we've got time to hang work, when are we going to open, when are we going to open for the public, when are we going to advertise, you know, all those things that are really, really important for the gallery to function, has really had to kind of answer those kind of questions. And I also think it's a really, really important first step in developing that reflective, critical dialogue with the children, set the groundwork, the kind of conceptual groundwork of how critically looking at art can be worked with children, how children can, how as a school we can really think about teaching children to really critically look at art, and how then that might impact on their practice. So we're kind of looking at this as a real kind of learning opportunity for us to take something from this as a school to say, okay, what can we put in the classrooms as part of our curriculum is really going to support their next steps, their next development in the art and design curriculum. It's been, you know, really, really fantastic beginning to a really, really interesting journey, I think. And I think the journey, what is really central to that journey, and I think I have to keep reminding myself this, is that it's about children's education, you know, and it's really, really thinking about, okay, what do we want them to learn, and how are we kind of going to do that. So things like, you know, I know we're talking about like semiotics. Well, how do we teach semiotics to 6-year-old children, to 7-year-old children? So you're giving us a real kind of insight into how that kind of might be done. So we've done it with Year 4. We're working with Year 4 now, and then of course that becomes an example of best practice that then can be kind of rolled out across the kind of the rest of the school. So often we have. We follow, the curriculum follows topics, and topics, they're very kind of broad to give children a really good comprehensive understanding, a real understanding of sort of an area of study such as environment, or Year 6 was studying the First World War. So within that, you know, they'll study kind of music, they'll study kind of poetry, they'll study kind of the design technology. You know, it's a real broad idea of what they should be doing. So we've got to fit the kind of gallery within that. You know, how as a gallery are we going to support that approach to learning, really? So it might be for us in the future, what we're going to do is going to look at the topics that are being taught across the school. We're going to think carefully about, you know, artists, or finding artists that might kind of relate not exactly to a topic, but kind of loosely to a topic and to a way of thinking about a kind of an area of investigation. So that's got to be mapped out this next few months. So that's really the next step for us.